Hello, I am Barry of Feldman Creative, Barry Feldman, that is, and I am speaking with Daniel Kushner, and he is the CEO of Oktopost. And we're going to talk about measuring social media analytics, and an important topic that's on the tip of measurers everywhere or marketers everywhere, and that is social media attribution. Thanks for being here today, Daniel.
Well, thanks for having me, Barry. It's my pleasure. I'm really excited to discuss this topic.
What is that thing over your shoulder? Is that an octopus?
Yeah, this is like a themed office that we have here. So everything here is around octopus and the sea.
Yeah, it looks like you're about to get eaten.
Ah!
All right. Well, yeah. Okay. So a company with a mascot because they're called Oktopost. So social media analytics. It comes up a lot. It scares people, but it's important for marketers, is it not?
Yeah, I think social media analytics, it's a very broad term. And for different types of marketers, they're measuring very different things. I like to discuss mostly around the B2B measurements because this is what we deal with on a day-to-day basis with our customers. And when we're talking about analytics, it's going beyond the traditional social metrics such as likes and shares and retweets, and really trying to understand the KPIs that can measure social and how that's relevant to the business success.
I read something you wrote, and I'm going to quote you now as I look at my notes. One of the reasons, okay, this is Daniel, one of the reasons some B2B marketers are resistant to using social media is due to the difficulty in measuring the true social media ROI. So you started talking about metrics.
Yeah.
And so I guess the question is, what marketing activities are helping me close deals, right? That's ROI. You make money.
Yeah, exactly. And when we look at marketing, and again, we're focusing on the B2B side, almost every single activity, it's really easy to measure, right? So if I'm spending, I don't know, 50, 100K on a trade show booth, I can count how many business cards I collect at the end of the day. If we're doing an online webinar and I'm paying, let's say, an analyst, whatever the analyst fee is to join my webinar, I know how many people have registered, I know how many people attended. And even if I'm doing paid ads, we have the platforms in place to help us measure from the paid ad to the leads, qualified leads, marketing qualified leads, and we can follow that down the pipeline. But when it comes to social, as I mentioned, the majority of the metrics are all around likes and shares and retweets and followers month over month. And there's no real correlation between that and my ROI, where normally we start to measure the ROI effectiveness with the number of leads that we're generating from a specific marketing event. So being able to tie social media to lead generation efforts and also lead pipeline activity, how we push leads down the pipeline, it's going to give us a much better picture of how social is really helping the business.
Yeah, it's about bringing into the executive offices, I think, what the boss actually wants to hear, right? Not likes and not shares and whatever, but information that amounts to the bottom line or delivers something on the bottom line.
Yeah, exactly. And before founding Oktopost, I was a VP marketing at a company called Nolia, which was later acquired by CA, Computer Associates. And when I'm talking about why the Oktopost was founded, I always relate to one of the stories at Nolia where I used to meet with the CEO once a month, and he just had one question for me: how many leads did you generate for us this month? And that was all he cared about. He didn't, everything else was a byproduct, but the main number, the main objective was leads for the sales team that would go out and to sell to these leads. So if a large portion of our activity is on social media, we want to be able to measure the social media and correlate that activity to the leads being generated from that effort.
Right. You presented to me when we talked about doing this interview, something published by Forrester and it's a long, detailed, and informative report. But I extracted this single sentence. It says, "Marketing needs to measure the sales opportunities generated and use this data to continuously optimize the ROI achieved across a well-considered marketing mix." So, and that speaks to marketing justifying its existence and its job and its efforts, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. The marketers, they need to prove the value. We know that in more enterprise companies, at least 80 to 90% of their budget has to have approved and positive ROI. So you always have the small, like 10, 15% fluff budget, but the majority has to have true ROI. And further in that report, that also goes down to mention that marketers who aren't able to measure the ROI of their marketing efforts are going to have a very hard time attaining their budgets and retaining their budgets for next year, because the business wants to see the dollars they put in, what they're getting out.
All right, so that brings up social media attribution, or at least it does in your world. That is all about social media measurement and social media management and so forth. So not a super easy thing to actually do unless you have the tools, right? You need to measure how social media activity means something to the bottom line, otherwise called attribution.
Yeah, definitely. So let me give an example. Let's say we're doing this interview. It's going to be published on some blog. There's going to be a write-up about it. And because, I mentioned, and my name is here and my company name is here, I'm sure that my marketing team is going to take the link of this blog that you put up and promote it on the Oktopost Twitter account, on our LinkedIn company page, on the Facebook page. So let's assume that a prospect comes, they click on my tweet, and they get to your blog. And they read about this attribution on social media and metrics and what's ROI data, what's fluff data, and they want to get more information. And they'll go do a Google, they'll search my name, they'll search the company name, Oktopost, in Google, and I'll get to my website, and hopefully they'll leave their information. They'll fill out a form to get a demo, white paper, webinar, whatever. But they left their information. Now, whatever tracking method I'm using, if this is Google Analytics, if this is a marketing automation platform like Acton, SalesFusion, Marketo, Eloqua, all those technologies is going to tell me as the marketer that this lead came from a Google search. But in reality, they came from a tweet that went to your blog that triggered somebody to do a search that led into my website. So with most of the tracking technologies, you're going to miss that connection between social and the lead that you generated. This is the lead attribution. And you're actually going to give incorrect attribution. You're going to give the attribution to a Google search when in fact it was the actual tweet. So in many cases, especially when we're curating content and sending traffic from our social media assets to third-party websites, we're missing a lot of this data. And this is, so even if social is helping to generate leads and is getting you traffic, but through third-party websites, it's very hard to track. So you might be getting useful traffic from social, but you won't know, you'll be clueless about it because you're not tracking it in a way that you can easily see that association or attribution.
Yeah, fair enough. So the complexity of a buyer journey, contributes to the complexity and the ambiguity ultimately of figuring out how that person got there. And so lost in the mix is going to be social. And a large part of it ultimately, I guess, is identifying the channels that are actually working, right? So if that channel happens to be Twitter or your blog or Facebook, they're not getting a fair shake when you look at the numbers.
Yeah, I think when you say what's working, to me that triggers what content is resonating with my audience. Okay, what are they reading? What are they clicking on? What's triggering them to spark their interest to move further along my kind of marketing funnel? And almost in every single discipline that we do in marketing, we measure the hell out of everything. We have platforms that you see heat maps on your website to see where the mouse is moving over, to see which buttons are getting clicked, if they're red, if they're green. We A/B test every single web form. We A/B test email subject lines. But if you think about it, when it comes to social media, nobody's testing. They're just putting the content out there, and what happens, happens. And then you might get the more advanced marketers that say, okay, so I'm getting 90% of my social traffic from Twitter, 5% from LinkedIn, whatever percent from Facebook. That's very generic. They're not saying, listen, if I write my tweets with an exclamation point or with a smiley or with a certain emoticon, that's going to get me more clicks per impression and drive more traffic to my website. So just like we test our web pages, just like we test the conversion forms and email opens and email clicks, why we should be testing our content on social as well, because after all, social is content, just like website content and just like email content.
Yeah, interesting. So, the question was about proving the worth of channels, but now you'd sort of introduce proving the worth of tactics, such as headlines or emoticons or use of images or video or what have you. Okay, so how's it done? You brought up marketing automation platforms and you went through a short list. You can use Oktopost for a lot of things, but you need to plug in marketing automation with Oktopost to do this enterprise level B2B social media attribution task we're talking about, don't you?
Yeah. So it really depends on the company, but I believe that there should be one platform that you're going to be using to measure at least the bulk of your funnel, right? The marketing and sales funnel, or the pipeline, if you call it a pipeline. And this could be in your marketing automation, like the Marketo Acton, as we mentioned, or in maybe Salesforce CRM. Larger companies, they might have BI platforms where they extract data from CRM or marketing automation and put them in BI dashboards. But in essence, you need, in order to get full attribution, you need to have full data connectivity between all these platforms. So social data, because from the top of the funnel, needs to flow into your marketing automation. Marketing automation needs to flow into CRM, because that's where the sales are happening. But there has to be a connection. You can't expect to be able to attribute social media to your lead generation efforts if the data isn't flowing between those two systems. So you have to have some type of connection.
All right. What about benefits otherwise than marching into the boss's office and asking for more budget or a bonus or a raise? What about just how knowing the data from your social media activities would contribute to sales enablement and lead scoring and lead nurturing and in general the ability to develop content that's more in line with your marketing goals?
Yeah, so I think there are many, many use cases. So let me try to give you a few in the short time that we have. So let's, one of the main things that we do in marketing automation is that if our prospects are looking at specific pages on the website, that we can learn what they're interested in, okay? Especially if they're visiting the pricing page, they're, further down the funnel, they're interested maybe in purchasing. If they're looking at a specific topic, they're interested in that. So if we have the social data, when somebody clicks on a tweet, yeah, that's great. We can say we got traffic from Twitter. But as the author of that tweet, we know an awful lot about what's happening in that message. We know why we send the tweet. Did it come from a specific campaign? What's the topic of the tweet? Was this tweet leading to a white paper that discusses ROI? Or was a tweet leading to a white paper that discusses, financial security platforms? So with that information, that just by the fact that somebody clicks on a tweet, if we know everything about that tweet, why it was written, where it was published, who published it, and that information is now inside marketing automation, we can actually understand the interests of our leads and prospects just by looking at their social click activity, and then use that information to nurture them in a much smarter way based on their specific interests. Okay, that's one example. Another example, let's say we have a prospect that's, very much down this is in the sales pipeline. It has what we call an open opportunity, let's say in Salesforce CRM, and the sales rep is working on this prospect. Let's say it's a long sales cycle, enterprise sale, and this prospect is constantly clicking on the company's social content. A tweet that went to Wall Street Journal, a LinkedIn update that went to somebody's online blog. All that information, once fed again into marketing automation, can then trigger alerts to the sales rep that his active prospect is looking at social content and actually show the rep what content is looking at. So when there's the next conversation or the next follow-up with this prospect can be based on what he's been doing on social media. So, as an example, like to bring it down to earth, when I call you up as a prospect, I say, hey, Barry, I see you took interest in the Wall Street Journal article that discussed financial security, right? Was there anything interesting there? Do you need any more information? And I can learn this just by looking at your social activity. Again, this is with the power of connecting social data to marketing automation.
Yeah, and in the very broad and large sense, I guess we're talking about the continued evolution of data-driven marketing. The more you know, the better you're able to provide your customers the experience they're looking for and assist in moving them closer to becoming a customer.
Yeah, and especially when you're talking about experience, one of a big trend in marketing automation is about real-time personalization. So when you go to a company's website, you're actually displayed with dynamic content that was created for you. If you're from a specific industry, where you are in the sales pipeline. And again, using social data, again, let's the same example that I clicked on a tweet that went to a specific blog that discussed financial security, that information can then be used on the homepage. So when you visit the homepage, you'll get specific content related to what you've been viewing on social media. So it's almost like retargeting on your own website. So make the content very personalized for the prospect.
Yeah, interesting analogy. Boy, it just keeps getting more interesting, and the tools keep getting more powerful. Great discussion. Thanks so much. I hope people sort of picked up on what it means to do social media attribution, and what that means to what its implications are for the things that you do next when you perpetually improve your marketing. I didn't say that cleanly, I guess. You got the idea. All right. Well, thanks for spending time with us today, Daniel.
Well, it's my pleasure. I just want to one takeaway. What we love to say here at Oktopost is that you can't improve what you can't measure. So if you want to improve the way you're doing social as a B2B marketer, as a corporate marketer, it has to be something that's measurable.
Measure your people. All right. We'll leave them with that. Watch out. There's an octopus over your shoulder.